All right, guys, we're talking a little bit about the various roles in social engineering and what each of them are. So, mind you, not every single social engineering project, if you wouldn't even call it that, has to have every single one of these roles involved. And not every single role has to be assigned to one specific person or vice versa. One person can literally have every single role in social engineering, whereas you can have 100 people literally doing the exact same role. So, sort of your common roles are one, it's going to be your, I guess you could call your architects. Your architects are going to be the people who are, well, they're designing it everything, right? So you are designing step A, step B, all the way to C, D, and E. Of course, there's going to have to be room for improvisation, albeit that kind of will be more delegated to the actor role. So, on the actor role is quite literally acting it out. Then, of course, you have the informant role. They're gathering information and they're sort of figuring out what can be exploited in a situation. And they're just go on and so forth. And then, of course, with the actor role, once again, you can kind of, do all three of these. A lot of people in the actor roles, they're going to play multiple, right? And so these would be the intentional roles, sort of the roles played by those in the social engineering scheme. They're the active players, active roles. As my dog's over there, just, I don't know. They're doing good for now. So, and then after the actor roles, you're essentially going to have sort of these sort of, I guess, what you would call the unconscious roles, or sort of the people that are not consciously aware that they're in the role. So obviously, this kind of goes back to narcissistic abuse, the flying monkey, you got the bystander, and then you have sort of the potential flying monkey. Now, a flying monkey doesn't necessarily have to be someone that's doing anything active. An example of, say, a social engineering or a psyop scheme can simply be, say, a political figure, a police officer, someone that may have a figure of authority even though they're not actively involved, but by being able to kind of pick apart their psychology and kind of pick apart their behavioral patterns and whatnot, you can kind of figure out, okay, how would this person react in this situation? And I can give you an example of how it would all play out. So, in a situation where, say, you could play out social engineering, very simple one, would, as an architect role, you could say, hey, I'm going to present this conspiracy theory in sort of a lighthearted manner, maybe in a more indirect manner. I could present it as a meme, as a joke, as some kind of comic book, I don't know, some drawing or I don't know, piece of music or something. Something that is on the surface, at least with a good amount of plausible deniability, lighthearted. It's not meant to be taken seriously, it's satire. And this is done so that in the case that someone accuses you of, you're believing that kind of crap or you're some kind of, delusional, paranoid conspiracy theorist, then you could just simply deflect it back as, hey, it was only a joke. They're the one that's overreacting, right? You're overreacting by getting all worked up over a simple little joke. You see how that works? Another thing would be say, if you know somebody is they're armed. They're armed, they have a weapon on them, but you're in, somewhere within the vicinity of the public eye. And you know that if they were to pull out their weapon and fire it, it would be very loud. it would be very loud, and it could possibly, and it's probably going to leave behind some blood, you know, guts, stuff, all kinds of stuff. And if there's a body somewhere, well, then the police are going to have to investigate. And then, so and so could get screwed over on their end of the deal. So by doing this, you can sort of take advantage of the potential for reaction. This is oftentimes commonly referred to as enabling. So you could say that, a lot of people that own guns or say are gun owners, they'll complain that, by restricting gun rights, by restricting the Second Amendment, you are enabling, say, a scammer or a thief or someone that might want to try to take advantage of somebody to do what they do and to inadvertently at least encourage them by, well, the incentive is already there, but there's not much potential for backlash because if and should the victim, try to defend themselves with, say, a firearm or something, or even as, in the event of, say, something has already happened and they just want to, try to maybe get some kind of restitution for it. So if, say, somebody had robbed you and scammed you, say, a couple days earlier, and you invite them back over, well, they're not really afraid to come back to you because they know that even if you do know, well, for one, you don't have much evidence, and two, you don't really have the legal authority to take any punitive action. You don't really have much evidence in the eyes of the court, aside from, say, hearsay and a lot of circumstantial evidence, which is loosely based on behavior. So it's getting very, very little uncomfortable having to hold this camera out in front of me. But I think that'll do about it for this one. Not because I'm tired of holding this camera, although I am a little bit, but that's just because I'm going to be repeating myself and going in circles at this point. So take care, guys.